Welcome to Tshwane TV. This is a Nelson Mandela special. My name is Hector Motivator, a motivational speaker by profession, but today putting on my cap as a TV presenter, new role as a result of what Tata Nelson Mandela did for us, making it possible for us to be able to do anything that we want in South Africa. So we're going to be discussing about the motivational speaking industry and the impact and the influence that the great man had on it, as we are saying, rest in peace, Tata Rolihlahla Madiba. So I have on my right, is that my right? Is it still my right?
Yes.
Oh yeah. I have on my right, I have on my right Joe. I know him as Joe, but I would like him to introduce himself fully, and the rest of the panel will be introducing itself later.
Greetings to all the viewers at home. My name is Johannes Ngwenya, affectionately known as Joe. I'm from the township of Tembisa, but I currently live in Belter Park now. I am formerly an analytical chemist by profession through the University of Johannesburg, and I've changed careers to be a motivational speaker. I do a lot of that, and I've got two of my companies that I run. It's Ngwenya Consulting Services and Johannes Ngwenya and Associates. That in a nutshell is me, and that's what I do. I'm a trainer, I'm a facilitator, I'm a business consultant, and I'm a motivator.
From Tembisa to
Velfred
Park. I was looking at the documentaries that have been playing on other platforms in the media, from Kunu to Horton. so that's what Madiba did for us, that you can go and live anywhere where you want to live. All right, thank you so much, Joe, and welcome to the program. On my left, we have Thabo Malapile, a motivational speaker as well. Tell people more about yourself, Thabo.
Oh, yes, thanks a lot, Brahek. My name is Thabo Malapile. I also grew up in the dusty streets of Tembisa, and I'm one young chap who grew up afraid of Mashangani. And I blame my mom for that, because each and every time when I did something wrong, she would say to me, so, but I think Joe is one of them, if I'm not mistaken, and he's next to me today. But I'm an inspirational speaker by profession, and I grew up in Tembisa. I love what I do, and I appreciate what Tata has done to us. And I'm indeed looking forward to impart our audience today as we share ideas.
Okay, you just said something about what he did for us. We'll touch on that later, that what did he really do for us. But before we go there, the first time you heard the name Nelson Mandela?
I was very, very young, in fact, and I'll say maybe the first time, I can't remember the year, but I remember the first time I knew about Nelson Mandela is when we were singing the song that says, Kusasekuseni siyokhulula uMandela, uMandela. It was an amazing song. I was a young chap running around with the people in the township when they were singing that tomorrow Nelson Mandela will be coming out.
Who was this to you?
It was just a Mandela that everybody was glorifying. I didn't even have a picture of how he looks like. Yeah. And I think I was scared also, this man that we are waiting for, how will he be like? Okay. And there came a handsome old man. And I always tell people, when I grow up or get old, I'd look like Mandela.
And then we have a rose among these thorns. Sejako, please introduce yourself.
Hi viewers at home, my name is Sejako Marajwani, the rose amongst the thorns. I'm a mechanical engineer by profession, studied at the University of Cape Town. I went into the speaking business for one reason and one reason only. Our industry needs to be transformed. And for us to be able to transform that, we need people that are able to talk, that are able to stand their grounds and do things to motivate people. Hence, my other leg is being in the motivational speaking business.
Okay. And on the far left, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome Lucas. Welcome to the program. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Hector. My name is Lucas Moloi. I shy away from saying I'm a motivational speaker.
No problem.
I am a speaker. I'm an inspirational speaker, like Thabo has said. I believe that I can motivate people through the actions. When I speak, I can only inspire them. Okay. But to motivate them is through what I do and that.
What do you do?
I run an organization that is called the Junto Group. It's quite a sizable organization where we've got 3 subsidiaries. We are in the media business, doing book publishing. We've got a radio station which is called Radio Junto. We do also a bit of a TV. We've got an online TV, Junto TV. We are also doing consulting, and in the quality environmental sector and that. And I do also luxury car rentals and such stuff. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, that's what I do.
All right, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
The first time you heard the name Nelson Mandela.
Yeah, sure. You know, there are stories in my life that easily reduce me to tears.
Okay.
And perhaps that is one of
some peanuts.
we hope it will not happen.
Or sakatu.
You know, Hector, for me, the first time I heard about the name Nelson Mandela was my mother used to drive a ice cream kumbi. And you know, selling ice cream in the suburbs and that. Yes, with that funny sound and that. One of the days she drove in one of the suburbs called Vanabale Park in the Val Triangle.
Yes.
And she was selling ice cream there. And one white gentleman came driving the car, parked on the side of the kumbi, and shot my mother twice.
You are kind to call him a gentleman.
And yeah, and you know, when she was in hospital and I was sitting on the bedside, and that's where the name Nelson Mandela came up. And I remember that my aunt saying, "These are the type of things that Nelson Mandela is sitting in jail fighting for." And I think that particular moment shaped and paved my life to what it is today. And that is how I got to know the name.
Oh, yes.
And that's why the name still resonates so deeply with me even today.
The question that I said in Tate Malapile here, you know, he alluded to it as he was introducing himself, that Nelson Mandela did something, you know, what he did for us. Now, that is my first question to all of us here today, and thank you very much for sharing your stories. And would you attribute what you are doing today? I think you've already said that, Lucas. Would you attribute what you are doing today to what Tate Mandela did? But the question is, what is it exactly that he did for us? Because the whole world this week is focusing on Mandela. He's the central focus. I think I've never seen in my lifetime, I'm only 42, in my lifetime I have never seen anybody giving this much attention. I mean, from around the globe, not in South Africa, the whole globe. If there are people on Mars, I believe they are also focusing on Mandela. But what is it that he did for us or for you? What did he do? Let's start with you, because you're saying that you are where you are because you attribute that to Mandela. What did he do?
You know, for me, Hector, I'll tell you this. When I grew up, I was a way darker than I am even now.
Okay.
Now, you know, when you grow up in the township and that, and you are dark, every bad thing was associated with you. So when you are playing around in the playgrounds and that, and the other child starts crying, you hear the mother saying, you know, so I think one big thing that he did for me was to accept myself the way I was, and to accept that being dark was nothing wrong. But in terms of my speaking career and that, I sit and say, he cultivated something in me where, you know, when you used to, in class, and then you speak and that you seem to be loud, you are this loud kid and that, shut up, keep quiet. And, you know, and I sat down and I said to myself, but this man never keeps quiet. If he believes in something, he talks. And I said, I am not going to keep quiet. I am going to talk. I am going to tell my story. And that's why today I'm an inspirational speaker. And that is directly from what people, including Nelson Mandela, did, who said, don't keep quiet. You've got a story to tell. If he had kept quiet, we wouldn't be where we are today.
Sejako, what did Nelson Mandela really do for you?
Having been a product of the homeland, I really don't believe that I could have went to study in one of what we call the best universities.
Because it was previously a white university, it was the University of Cape Town.
It was University of Cape Town.
Yes.
And I'm thinking I could have just easily went to our college there. But then because of the inspiration that this man came with, he was just a selfless person. He was just a giving person. And when he talks, he actually motivates you to want to do more. If he came from Kunu to wherever to become a president of the country, surely I can come from Moshaneng. You know, I don't even know that people can recognize where the place is. From Moshaneng to wanting to study, go Cape Town. It was a big achievement for me. If that didn't come along, if he didn't become a president, I'm surely that dream could have never happened. And
so he opened doors for us.
Exactly. It was more opening doors for us. Don't be afraid to dream. You can be whatever that you want to be in the world. And hence, I even chose one of what was perceived as a male-dominant career. Before then, I don't think a whole lot of people were choosing such careers. But because Mandela came along and he did things that we thought will never be done in the country, that also pushed me to really want to move mountains. I wanted to move mountain, and by so doing, it was more inspiration to people who think that they cannot really make it in the world. If they see your little life from coming from that little room where you used to stay, and you were able to go and study and start your own company and still push, surely somebody out there is watching and saying, if she can do it, so can I. But that came from the motivation that Mandela himself did for us in our country.
Wow. Dr. Malapile?
Wow.
What did Ntate Mandela do for you? As we are burying him, as we are saying goodbye to him in this realm, what is he leaving for you? That legacy, what did he do for you?
And I'm sure if one was to start counting right now, legacy. But if there's one thing outstanding that I have captured or gained from him, was that he's been a father. You know, he's been a father, and when you check off all the things that happened within his family, he remained a father to all of us. And that is why every time when I become an absent father to my kids, it hits me back. So he's been a father to all the kids who didn't have fathers. He's been a father to his children. And I always say to myself, since this has happened, I said, Thabo, stop being an absent father to your children. Madiba has been there. He's been a father to you. Be responsible. And this is a message I would want to go out there, as I have learned from him, to teach other fathers out there also that let us avoid being absent fathers. But out of all the things I have learned from him was that avoid being an absent father, or be a father.
Wow. Raju?
You know, there's so many things that Dr. Mandela did for us as a country, and we can keep mentioning those, but that's what he did for us generally as a country, and that's where we start talking about opportunities. We've been able to go to varsity and all of that. But I want to personalize it and talk about those things that he did and how they impacted my life individually, specifically. Now, he was an orator of note.
Wow.
Now, if you listen to Mandela, he was able to captivate you, and he would keep you listening to him, and there is no way now, because he's one of the most quoted individuals on planet Earth. And I was aspiring to be an inspirational speaker one day. It's only in retrospect that I'm listening to the other colleagues saying what they're saying now that I realize that he inspired me to become a motivational speaker in a sense, without me realizing it actually. Because one of the things that happened, I would collect some of his quotes.
Yes.
And now it wasn't just quotes. You would read about his quotes, but there were principles embedded in those quotes. So there is no way you can read about quotes by Nelson Mandela and not be changed yourself in the process. So that's how he impacted me. But having said that, I aspire to be a speaker one day. I would just look and listen at this orator of note and the things he did and how he carried himself and how he interacted with other people. And he drew me closer. and I wanted to know more about him. I read up books that spoke about South African history, specifically on his life, and I really took a lot from his life, and I took it as something that I could do for myself as well, and I credit him for the person that I am today.
Wow. And this brings us now to our industry, the motivational speaking industry, because that's why we are here today, because Mandela did his part. He inspired us. Personally, as a motivational speaker, all the questions I was asking you guys now, I found that personally, the first time I heard about Mandela, I'm living in Madidi, former Botswana as well, where his name was forbidden. You couldn't say Mandela. You would be arrested for just saying Mandela. And we're at a soccer match. I remember vividly, my brother used to play for this one soccer team in the village, Madidi Rama Brothers. And then some ladies, older ladies, they're scattering about Mandela. Yeah, I hear that they want to release him. But Lena, what Papa, man, why has I not told him? I know and I thought, but this guy, who's this guy with this and Papa? Why doesn't he stop what he's doing? Because I did not understand what he was trying to do until came the day of his release from prison, 1992. Remember vividly, that time I was living with my aunt, go Mabupani, Block S, 6355, and I'm alone, I'm watching TV, and here comes out this man, and I see this, almost what's happening now, after his passing away. And all the television stations, everybody just talking about this man. And I started, it drew my attention. And then after that, the media is all about this guy, and we know what happened in the country. The country started burning. There was, Inkatha, there was ANC, there were fights and everything. I was focused on wanting to be a radio DJ at that time. Then my dream came true. I ended up working for a radio station, Radio Bob, in 1994. I like saying that when he became president, I became presenter. Because it happened, just a few months apart. He took over in April, and the very next month, on the 6th of May, I took over as a radio DJ. For me, that was almost instant impact. That he becomes a president, and a few weeks later, my dream comes true. The Madiba magic, These guys were waiting for Mandela for me to accept me, Is it because I'm black? So immediately after that, then came that stage where I was exposed to motivational speaking through Bra David Molapo. And Bra David would always quote Madiba. And he had a message called From Prisoner to Pioneer. It was from prisoner to president. And he'd always mention his own story, because he was in prison as well, and mentioned the story of Ndate Mandela. And that's a guy who made me aware of the impact that Mandela had in life. And from there, I started hearing almost every motivational speaker would somehow allude to 27 years in jail and then turning out and becoming something. Now, as a motivational speaker, you've already shared that with us, Joe. But for you guys, have you quoted him before in your presentations? And what was the occasion? And do you find that his influence in our industry is that much that we cannot call ourselves speakers without somehow referring to Mandela? Did he do good for this industry? I guess that's what I'm trying to ask. What did he really do for our industry? Because we're moving from what he did for us personally, but for this industry, anything that you remember some speaker saying that made you think, wow, that's interesting? Luke?
Hector, I'll say this.
Yes.
There's a story I tell every time when I do my talks. Yes. It doesn't matter whether it's an educational talk or it's a professional talk or what. And I say every time, in his words, he said that people will start appreciating your leadership style if in the times of challenges, you lead from the front. But in times of triumph and celebrations, you lead from the back. And a story I always tell, I say to people that, it says that there was a teacher that used to train preschool kids. And the story says every time this person came in class, he would address these kids as ladies and gentlemen. He will always thank them for the opportunity that they have given him to come talk to them. Now one day one of these young people came up and said, "Sir, why do you always treat us like adults with respect? We have no choice but to be here." He looked at this child and he said, "Sir, the reason I do that, it is because I have no idea of who is standing in front of me." Now legend says that one of the students in this preschool class was Albert Einstein. Now I take the story home and say, in Khunu somewhere, a teacher by the name of Mrs. I think it was Mkawazi or something like that.
The one who gave him the name Nelson? Was he the one? Yes.
This teacher took a boy with the name Kholihlahla.
Troublemaker.
And she said, "What is your other name?" And he said, "No, I am only Kholihlahla."
Yes.
And she said, "Today, your other name is Nelson." And she taught this young man to write the name Nelson. Little did she know that she is helping someone to write the name that will be written in every history book in the world.
And in every mind and
She
in
was
every
not
heart.
teaching someone to write the name. She taught someone to engrave a name.
Wow. Wow.
That is the impact that Nelson Mandela has had. That is why every speaker, when you talk about principles, when you talk about success, when you talk about perseverance, and when you talk about vision, you can be able to sum that up in one man. That's what he has done.
Wow. So he's really freed us as speakers. He's given us ammunition. He's given us material. You know? Wow.
He's given us, in fact, an ability to go out there and help what he has started to free the minds of the people. You see, we need to allow people to understand, yes, they've been in captive. Now they need to understand what this freedom means. Now this freedom simply means if you don't own a car, in order for you to be free, you don't have to have money right now to own that car. All you must do is to go to the garage that sells the car, touch the car, smell the car, feel the car, tell the car, I will be back. And that is a symbol of freedom. You need to let yourself know that you are free to own whatever you want to own. But because we are still exactly what we were talking about, dogs being on chains. And when you remove the chain, the dog, if you don't teach the dog to know that you are free, the dog will still act as if it's still on chains. Now, if you don't allow yourself to understand what this freedom means, this freedom simply means you can own whatever you want to own. But you don't necessarily have to own it literally for now, but own it in your mind. Go out there and own these things. Go out there, view a house. Go in there, phone an agent. I want to see a house. Go in there, put your hands in the pocket, walk around the house. Wow, how many square meters is this house? And when you go back home, you've got something to talk to your husband and to your wife. Unlike just discussing generations, you can discuss a car, you can discuss a house. That's what freedom means.
I was a little concerned when you said that, you know, you can just walk into a car dealership and say, we are free. And say, give me the car.
In fact, Hector, if you can check it, that F for freedom, you can even send it, it will mean faith. Freedom without faith is as good as nothing.
Now, you just touched on something that we were talking about before we went officially recording this special for Mandela. And by the way, if you are tuning in for the first time and you're wondering what are these guys on about, of course, what the whole country is talking about right now, we're talking about the passing away of a great man. We are paying a special tribute. We are celebrating the life of one great. He's got so many names. Sometimes I'm not so sure which ones to mention. Tata, Nelson, Rolihlahla, Kholihlahla. I think that's how you say it proper. Kholihlahla. Nelson, Dalibunga, Nelson Mandela, Madiba. That's the clan name. That's what we are celebrating. And sitting here, we are motivational speakers, and we're discussing the impact and the influence that this great man has had on our industry. Some of us are able to feed our families by simply quoting Nelson Mandela, you know. Now, you talked about the issue we were discussing before we started recording, the freedom. Something very interesting, where some people are actually asking a very tricky question. Are we free or not? Are we really free as South Africa? By the way, next year, which is 2014, 20 years after democracy in South Africa, since Mandela took over from 1990, was it 1990 what again?
1990. He was released in 1990 in February.
When he became the president?
He became the president in 94.
Yeah, 94. From 94 until now, we're talking 20 years of freedom. But there are questions in people's minds. Make no mistake about it. We are now mourning and we're thinking and also celebrating. But there are questions in people's minds. Are we really, truly free as South Africans? Are we free, guys?
Well, I think
and Tabu, let's start with you, because you were just explaining this for us about freedom and faith and everything. Are we free?
I think it depends what's your understanding of that freedom.
What is your understanding of
my understanding of freedom is that you need to be able to acquire the things that you want to acquire. You see, you need to be free first in your mind. Because if you're still holding on the things which our parents were put under, and you are still allowing these things to hold you captive today, you are not free. And you cannot be free in terms of material things if you are captive in your mind. So you need to be free first in your mind, whereby you are able to think to the fullest, and you can think freely, you can speak freely, and then you take your freedom from there.
There are still people who are, let's just be honest and candid about it. It was about black and white. It was racism. There are still people who are afraid of white. So how, as we are talking about that, the how part, I think that's what I would like us to emphasize on. How? That Mandela was a free person.
Sure, I think it's much of understanding, Hector. You know, and I think we were talking about people like, for instance, you find yourself in an environment like in Deep Slot. Until you find yourself in that situation and you say to yourself, enough, it's enough. But people who never enjoy the fruits of freedom is people who accept where they are. And those are the people who never know the meaning of freedom. In fact, I remember I shared this other story, and it will come into this part of freedom, where we are told that there's an old man who went mountain climbing with his son. As they were climbing this mountain, this young chap nearly fell, and he screamed, "Yo!" And the sound came and said, "Yo!" And because he was curious, he went like, "Who are you?" The sound said, "Who are you?" He went like, "I will kill you." The sound said, "I will kill you." Out of being curious, he asked the father, "Who is this person who's talking to me?" Now the father said to him, "My son, listen." The father said, "I am free." The sound said, "I am free." He said, "I am rich." The sound said, "I am rich." He said, "I am healthy." The sound said, "I am healthy." Now he went back to this young shepherd and said, "My son, what you just heard is what people call echo, but I call it life. Whatever you give to life, life will give it back to you. In order for you to enjoy freedom, you need to invest understanding, belief, and desire. And that is the only time you'll enjoy this freedom." And I believe that Nelson Mandela believed in his faith. That is why he went on to say he will have freedom in his lifetime. And he has enjoyed that. He believed in that, he worked towards that, and he became free. Until we have desires in our lives, we can never taste freedom.
Any other person? Oh, do you want to note it, comrades?
This freedom comes in different levels.
Yes.
It starts with an individual. It starts personally. Now, when you read on Mandela's history, they'll tell you that from the time he was a little boy, even with the elders in the family, they knew that if there was a white man that came and all of them ran away, he fought them to say, "Why are you doing this?" Now, let me tell you, I've done a lot of diversity sessions around the country, even as most recent as the past 2 weeks. I can tell you what this discrimination has done to our people and what it means to be isolated, because discrimination deprives you of a number of different things, opportunities, services, and your uniqueness and all of that. So you were asking earlier to say, what does freedom mean to you? To me, freedom means being given the ability to protect what you stand for. If I want to be me, I should be allowed to protect that and guard it jealously.
Yes.
If family is important to me, if I want to do whatever, I should be allowed to do that, being given the opportunity, being given the resources for me to be able to extend myself and do whatever it is that I want to do. Now, Mandela stood for something. Now, if you want to define freedom, then it's important that you first understand that Freedom without limits, it renders whoever is given that freedom vulnerable. Freedom without boundaries is abuse. Now, anytime you give people freedom and you're not equipping them in their minds in terms of what it means to be responsible, to be accountable, to guard whatever they've been given, jealously, to hold it dear to their hearts and attach significance and attach some serious value to it, it's always going to be something that's going to end up in the bin. So it's important that even when we spoke about the people who are in deep sleep, etc., we understand that it starts with an individual being accountable, being responsible, knowing exactly what it is they want, because Mandela stood for something. And he guarded that jealously, and he wouldn't be shaken. He wouldn't settle for any second best. And today he's no more, but he enjoyed all of that which he stood for.
Yeah, he died a free man. Sejako, what does freedom mean to you, and how do we free those of us who are still having those chains in their minds?
I'm going to bring it very close to me. I took a visit. I went to some of the squatter camps. Just spend a day there with some of the girls that are there, my age. Just see how they think. And you know, you keep questioning yourself, what differentiates me from this person who is Komukukung and you staying in the suburb? It's all in the thinking. We're thinking differently, and once we don't get that freedom of mind, freedom of wanting to choose how we think, then we're still going to be captured in the situations that we find ourselves in. But then the question is, what makes you different?
And especially because the men that we are celebrating today had actually made it possible for us. Because remember, there was a point in this country where it doesn't matter how much you believed you could be an engineer. Doors were closed, that black people can only be this and that. So with all these doors opened, you know, in church there's a song, a chorus that people like singing, Avulegile Masam. People will sing about it, Avulegile, but they never enter. They singing about the open door and dance about it, but nobody says, okay, since Avulegile, after the song, let me get in. They remain outside the open doors. So thank you for sharing that. Lucas.
Hector, your question is
how? Yes.
Are we free?
Are we free? Yes.
Are we free? Yes, we are free. Are we emancipated? Is the question.
What's the difference?
Freedom is something else. Freedom is the ability for you to be who you can be.
Yes.
Emancipation is believing in it and doing it.
And acting it out.
There's a song from Bob Marley that I love. It says, emancipate yourself from mental slavery.
That redemption song.
Because none but ourselves can free our minds.
True.
What is happening in South Africa is that people have brought us freedom. But we're still sitting in our houses in a mental slavery. There is nothing you can do for a nation that is in mental slavery, because slavery, it is in their mind. They are living inside slavery, even though the door is open. Now, what that means, in 1983, outside Free State in Bradford,
yes,
Winnie Mandela gave an exclusive interview. And that interview was about how is she coping without a husband and in banishment. This is the period where she was not even with her kids. She was banished to a strange land.
yes,
No husband, no kids, no friends. The first words she says in this interview is that the most painful thing I'm going through is being in an environment and in a community that I cannot even connect with intellectually. I cannot have an intellectual conversation in the community that I'm in, because it is a community of slaves. It's a community of people that have been told you are not good enough and they believe it. Are we free? Yes, we are free. Free in terms of the constitution.
Yes.
Free in terms of the area where you can go and live.
Yes.
Are we emancipated from slavery? No, we are still slaves.
Now, that's the question that I have around Tata Madiba Mandela. That would you say that he helped us up to a certain point, freedom, but the question of emancipation, has he played a role in that? Whose duty is that to emancipate people?
You see, and that's why I referred to the song again.
Yes, none but ourselves.
What we can do for people
Yes.
is to inspire change. Did Nelson Mandela inspire change?
Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
The first interview that Nelson Mandela had, he was asked this question. This was in 1963.
Yes.
So the first interview that he had on television,
Yes.
he was underground, banished,
Yes.
and the gentleman asked him a question. And he said to him, first question he said, what is it that an African wants? That was defined a long time before, but people have forgotten what is it that an African wanted.
And what is that?
He answered this question. He said an African requires a franchise of one man, one vote. That was freedom.
Yes.
The franchise of one man, one vote. That's what we required. That was freedom.
Yes.
We've gotten that. The second question was, can an African build this country by itself? His answer was, we understand that this country is a country of diversity.
Yes.
We've got place for everyone. We are not chasing anyone away. A place of everyone. Not a place where one believes to be the slave and the other believes to be the master. That is belief. The third question that I want to touch and close on,
Yes.
on this issue, is when he was asked, is there enough educated Africans? And he said, yes, there is enough educated Africans. There is enough educated Africans to bring the change that we want. He said the issue of votes, it is not related to education, because you don't need to be educated to know what is right or wrong in your life. You don't need to be educated to know that you don't want to be ruled by a system that steals from you. Nelson Mandela said in his words, if the ANC does to you what the apartheid government did to you, you must do to the ANC what you did to the apartheid government. That, for me, was freedom. He said to me, don't go and be a doormat. Don't go and be a yes sir. Don't go and pledge your loyalty to someone who doesn't have your best interest at heart.
Wow. You know, I was in Lusikisiki, which is very close to those places recently. And when I saw the conditions in that place, the question was the same. Nelson Mandela is from here. President Thabo Mbeki is from here. And many other great leaders came from that part of the world, Lusikisiki, Mvezo, Tsulo, and all those places. And I was asking myself that question, that
why are we not having a debate of how much money is spent there and splashed?
This brings me to us closing the program right now, your parting shots around this. But maybe before we go, the question of the future, that he's going to be buried on the 15th of December, 2013. After Mandela, that's the big question now that's on everybody's mind. And as a motivational speaker, I expect you to be having some words for South Africa, because most people are saying that, but fine, Tata is gone. 20 years into democracy, Mikuku, you know, you said that when you are in your house, in my head was that in a shack, you know, because I'm not so sure whether you call a shack a house. That as we are seated here today, there are those people who are living in shacks, who are living gumikuku, in this free South Africa, there are people who still go to bed without food. It is happening. We know that for sure. Now, some people in some quotas are saying that, you see, that's Mandela's legacy. The rich remains rich, and most of the time in South Africa, the rich are white. Let's not shy away from that question. And the poor are getting even poorer. And in this case, we know those are black people. Almost questioning his legacy, that did he really leave this for us? Do we really have to blame it all on the shoulders of one man and say it's because of him? How do we move from here? How do we bring real change that people can see and say, indeed, we are free? Like I said, for example, there are people who will say that it looks like it was even better during apartheid. You know, at least you had a 4-roomed brick house. Better to a mukuku. Where did we lose it, and where do we take it forward? How do we take it forward? We seem to be in a catch-22 situation, in a fix. We'll start with you, Raju.
Well, I think that the man himself could only do so much. Beyond which, it's the baton in our hands now for us to run with it. Of course, this widening gap between the rich and the poor is continuing going on in our country, and there's a lot of people who continuously say the government should do something about it. But I spoke to people, I posted something on social media, and I said, well, you may not be rich, but where you are, you're way better off than the person who's the lowest in your organization where you're working. Are you doing something to help that person? Do you know in the complex where you live, the security guard sometimes go on for the whole night without something on their stomach? They don't even have money for transport for tomorrow. It's in specific places like those that we can start making a difference. Because with Mandela, he could have been silenced to say, you and your family are okay. Why do you worry about the rest of the people in South Africa? But he understood that I am not free as long as my brother is not free. And now for us, it's